Hey folks, thanks for tuning in today. I hope everyone's well. I just wanted to mention quite a sad and concerning little story that caught my interest today. I think because I put out a couple of videos on the brand YouTube hack, there are some people in the comments accusing me of trying to engage in censorship or trying to hasten the closing of BNT because it's seen as a free speech platform, and that's certainly not the case. I'll put my cards on the table. I'm really concerned about the state of free speech in the UK. I think the rights of people to speak freely in the UK are being eroded at a very, very worrying rate. Things that are happening today that if you were told had happened 20 years ago, there's absolutely no way you would believe they were happening in the UK in relation to people getting put into prison for things they've said, people being arrested for jokes, people talking about against politicians in non-threatening ways but offensive ways and being arrested. These things are not things that would have happened in the UK 20 years ago. Normal people in the UK are actually increasingly afraid to express themselves, to give their thoughts and opinions on political issues. God forbid you talk about a social issue or a controversial issue, and people are even worried about making jokes now or taking the opposing side in an argument for the legitimate fear of losing their job, and even more outrageously, the fear of being arrested, which is stoked heavily by the government and the police. They want people to have that fear. The police have put out tweets previously saying, be careful what you put on social media because our officers are watching and will pay you a visit if we don't like what we see. I think that might have been Police Scotland, or it might have been a force in England that put that out, but you know, that was outrageous when that came out. But the story that caught my eye today is very similar, but it seems to be an escalation in this kind of issue that we're seeing. And it's about a young guy called Darren Grimes. I'm sure a few people have heard of him. I don't really know much about him, but he's a political activist, I think. He's got a little YouTube channel. It's only about 7,000 subscribers. So it's not like he's a famous guy or anything like that. But he is certainly politically active from what I'm aware. And I heard him on the radio today talking about this case. So basically this guy, Darren Grimes, doing his own thing with his YouTube channel, obviously. He's interviewing people. He had a guy on called Dr. David Starkey. Now, David Starkey is quite a famous, in the UK anyway, historian, I think he is. And I believe he's written a lot of books. He used to be on TV all the time. He used to be a kind of normal face on TV. He's on panel shows and things like that, but it seems recently that old age is possibly slightly getting on top of David Starkey, and the things that he's saying, some of the things that he's saying anyway, are becoming either more controversial or society is just becoming a little bit less tolerant to his opinions, and I suspect it's probably a little bit of both. But either way, David Starkey, well-known guy, he's just basically a British eccentric, to be honest. And he was on this Darren Grimes show, and he said something which was probably quite offensive or shocking, you could say. I'm not going to get into what he said because it's not the point of this at all. But it's the kind of thing that when I heard it, I was quite shocked when I heard it, and it's not the sort of thing you'd really want to hear, but I just think it was just a stupid thing for him to say. It's not worthy of any punishment, in my opinion. But people can certainly angrily snap back at David Starkey for what he said. That's their entitlement. They're absolutely allowed to do that. It's called social consequences. But anyway, this guy, Darren Grimes, he had him on his show. David Starkey said the stupid thing. Blah, blah, blah. That was his answer to a question, apparently. And Darren Grimes posted the podcast. He uploaded the interview to his YouTube channel. Some time passed, and the police are now threatening to imprison Darren Grimes. He is basically, they've got in touch with him and they've told him that he needs to attend a police interview under caution to explain himself. And if he doesn't attend that police interview, a warrant will be issued for his arrest, and he'll probably end up getting his door kicked in at 5 o'clock in the morning and dragged away from his family and put in a cell while the police, do what they want until they're ready to interview him so he can discuss his video that he put up. It's not an empty threat. I think American viewers will probably be quite surprised to know that there are thousands of arrests for speech violations in the UK every year, and many of them result in fines or people actually going to prison. And it also might surprise you a little bit more to know that the police themselves act as the complainer in many of these cases. Certainly in Scotland, where I'm from, this is starting to be seen as a major problem. So if a police officer sees a post on Facebook or Twitter that's deemed offensive by them, then the person who posted that will end up having the same issues as Darren Grimes. In this case, they'll be contacted, or they may just have their door put in and be taken to a cell until they are interviewed by the police. And then they'll end up in court and most likely charged and convicted. Usually this is for offensive speech. Offensive actually isn't, I don't believe, is actually defined under the law. But you better hope you don't say something that the court thinks is offensive if you end up in front of a judge, put it like that. So anyway, so Darren Grimes has now got this hanging over him. But the thing that's really different in this case is due to the fact that Darren never said anything offensive. He simply just interviewed a guy who said something offensive on his show. And as I said, it's a very well-known person that he was interviewing. It wasn't just some random guy off the street or a friend of his that he had sitting opposite him spouting nonsense. It was a well-known historian, and it was obviously in the public interest for the interview to be published and for people to know the views of this well-known figure. It's a terrible precedent to be set, because I don't think this has actually happened in the UK any point at all where a journalist has been arrested or threatened with arrest for something that one of their guests has said. And I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but you can imagine a time when journalists will be unable to interview members of opposing political parties or heads of foreign governments and things like that, people that might say offensive things or things that some people might find offensive. Is the journalist going to get arrested if the journalist publishes the interview? And it just goes without saying that the result is a chilling effect on journalism overall, as well as a chilling effect on free speech. And the problem with that is that you'll end up never hearing someone's true opinions on something. So it's a diminishment in the rights of people to know what other people think, to know, who thinks what. If you can't hear someone's opinions on something, there's no opportunity for debate, there's no opportunity for people to change their minds, and there's also no opportunity for social consequences to take hold. Now, social consequences did result in David Starkey getting a lot of blowback over his opinions. That's to be expected. The kind of thing that he said is not the sort of thing that a lot of people agree with. And that's the consequence of airing controversial or unpleasant statements. Other people have got the right to argue back, or at least they should have that right. Maybe they won't soon enough, but David Starkey got a lot of blowback for this. But that was the social consequences. Arresting the interviewer several months, I think, down the line, that's not social consequences. The police arresting people for speech is not social consequences. That's the government and the police acting against the people. And they're acting against all of us when they take action like this. It's a violation of a person's rights, in my opinion, to threaten them with arrest when you've actually got that power for something that they've said. And it's beyond comprehension that a YouTuber or an independent journalist can be threatened with arrest for publishing something that their guest said on a podcast. So this is something that I think crosses all political ideologies. It crosses across people with no particular political ideology. It's a danger to everybody. It's a danger to all of us, our friends, our family members, and not just people whose opinions are extreme or unsavoury at the current time, because everyone can misspeak and everyone has some opinions on some things that will be controversial in some contexts. The police shouldn't just be allowed to sit and wait and pounce on people when they either slip up or when they express a genuine feeling that is disagreed with by the police themselves, or for allowing their podcast guests to express something along those lines. It's an abuse of government force, that's all it is, regardless of whether you agree with the statement that leads to an arrest, or this one that David Starkey said. This incident really is a massive abuse of government force, and it's probably been done to send a message in some way or another to people to toe the line. It could stop legitimate journalism, and it could certainly stop alternative media. It was pointed out in the interview that Darren Grimes did, which was on talk radio. They mentioned the fact that Sky News and other large media organisations have broadcast many instances of what could arguably be said to be offensive speech by guests, and the police don't prosecute in those instances. So it does make you wonder, is it just a way to manage the news and the flow of information to people by stifling alternative media? Yeah, all I know is that a mediocre opinion today could be an extremely offensive opinion in 5 years' time. So it is a case where you actually do need to be careful what you say, unfortunately, at least if you want to avoid getting your door kicked in at 5 a.m. Anyway, I'll be following the Darren Grimes case, and I really do hope that the whole thing gets dropped. I hope it gets thrown out of court by a wise judge, but unfortunately that is extremely unlikely. It's sad how unlikely that is to happen in the modern British justice system. Okay folks, well I'll catch you on the next one. Just remember to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're not already, if you want more content like this, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers folks.